The last queen of the Nile is a name known by almost everyone, Cleopatra. Her legend has inspired countless works of art and literature, but how much of it is actually true? Was she really as beautiful as they say? And what was the secret of her incredible power? We will find out today in this episode of Who Really Ruled the World. Cleopatra's story began in 69 BC, at which time Egypt was a province of Rome. Her father was Ptolemy XII, a descendant of Alexander the Great, who had been placed on the throne by Rome after a series of civil wars. Although Egypt was nominally a part of the Roman Empire, it enjoyed a large degree of autonomy, and Cleopatra received a traditional Egyptian education. She grew up speaking Egyptian and little to no Latin or Greek. However, given that most of the population of the ruling class spoke Greek, Cleopatra learned it later on. It is believed that the royal family also worshipped Egyptian gods alongside Greek ones, such as Zeus and Apollo, which made them more acceptable to the Greeks. After the death of her father, Cleopatra became the ruler of the kingdom together with her younger sister and her brother. However, soon enough, the siblings decided to do what siblings do best: betray each other. Cleopatra accused her brother of raping her and thus deprived him of his throne. She did not want to rule alone, however, and so she took as her lover and co-regent none other than her brother's half-brother, a man named Ptolemy XIII. This may sound like a lot of drama for two people who were related to share a throne, but remember that we're talking about ancient Egypt here. Love affairs among family members were quite common. For example, Cleopatra's great-grandmother was married to her grandfather, and her grandmother was married to her father. Yikes! Not long after becoming queen, Cleopatra turned her attention away from her own family and toward Rome. At that time, Julius Caesar was busy conquering the entire Mediterranean. And when he heard that the beautiful Cleopatra would not come to him, he decided to conquer Egypt too. He built a dam near the city of Alexandria, settled there with his army, and demanded that Cleopatra pay him a hefty sum of money to let her people go. She paid him and then asked him to leave. When Caesar came back to exact revenge on her, she welcomed him into her palace, where she gave him a grand feast and won him over. She also bore him a son. Caesar was very proud of his little bastard and wanted to make sure that he would be taken care of. And so he left Cleopatra and her son in charge of an annual stipend while he went off to do more conquering. Sadly, before he could return to see his favorite concubine again, he was assassinated by a group of senators, but not before naming her son Caesarion as his heir. Now that the boy Caesar had been declared Caesar, Cleopatra naturally had many enemies among the Roman nobility. They wanted the young Caesar to marry a nice Roman girl and produce heirs within the bloodline of Augustus. You know, this whole dynasty thing. So they sent her former brother-in-law, now her ex-husband, Ptolemy XIII, to persuade her to marry another one of her brothers, either of which would be acceptable as Caesar's adoptive father. Naturally, Cleopatra refused to do this, since she knew that her sons would be killed if she did, so her ex-husband got pissed and attacked her. She beat him with the help of her sister and then killed both him and their sister. Now she was the only ruler of Egypt. Rome was in chaos at this point, fighting a civil war between Octavian and Mark Antony. Cleopatra supported Antony and even lent him some money to help him win the war. In return, he gave her the territories of Cyrene and granted her the title of Queen of the East. After winning the civil war and taking control of Rome, Octavian set his sights on Egypt. He did not like that Cleopatra had sided with his rival and used her vast wealth to get him into power. So he sent his right-hand man, Agrippa, to attack her. Cleopatra fled to the city of Actium, located on the western coast of Greece. There she assembled a massive fleet of over 2,000 ships in order to escape to Egypt. It is said that before leaving Actium, Cleopatra left a message for Octavian, saying something along the lines of, "Looks like I'm gone, sucker. But the truth is that she never intended to leave in the first place. While everyone else thought that she was escaping, she was secretly planning to ambush Octavian's forces. She waited for them to arrive and then attacked. But her plan failed, and her fleet was defeated. Cleopatra returned to Alexandria without any warships and knowing that her end was near. We all know how this story ends, with Cleopatra taking her own life rather than being captured by Octavian. Historians have long debated whether she did it by allowing an asp, a venomous snake, to bite her. But according to a letter written by the Roman historian Pliny the Younger, she instead held a vial of poison to her head until it broke. But it's okay, because the asp version is way cooler. So we'll just stick with that. Now, regardless of how she died, her fate was sealed when she lost the Battle of Actium. If she had been able to hold on to her powers and keep Octavian out of Egypt, she would have been able to maintain her independence and secure her position in history as the last queen of the Nile. But why didn't she? Cleopatra was beautiful, that's for sure. Even though ancient authors were often crude and sexist when describing women, they always praised Cleopatra's beauty and intelligence. Romans especially loved to talk about how she charmed Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and how she bested them at their own games. But we should remember that these men were conquerors and rulers themselves. Beauty was simply another weapon in Cleopatra's arsenal to maintain her independence and sovereignty. Her real power lay in her ability to forge alliances with foreign powers. Cleopatra's alliance with Rome wasn't a new thing. The Ptolemies had been working to form good relations with the Romans since the days of Julius Caesar's great-grandparents. During her reign, Egypt was at peace with Rome, even as it waged war with other Hellenistic kingdoms. Being a good diplomat, she knew how to take advantage of men and situations. She chose to live with Julius Caesar because she knew that he was powerful and that having his support would help her to solidify her rule. Similarly, she decided to side with Mark Antony because she knew that he was likely to become the next emperor. By aligning herself with Rome's most powerful men, Cleopatra secured her own power. This explains why she was willing to sleep with her brother, her uncle, and even her former slave, as well as why she kept Caesarion, the product of her love affair with Julius Caesar, alive. None of this was unusual for the royal families of the ancient world. So how did Cleopatra die? Well, it's a combination of bad timing and bad decisions. If she had stayed neutral during Octavian's civil war, he probably wouldn't have marched on her, but she hoped to gain more territory from him if she supported his enemy. Unfortunately for her, her gamble did not pay off. Rather than expanding her kingdom, she lost it all because of her belief that she could play the game of politics better than anyone else. Cleopatra's story might have ended differently if she had been born at a different time. If she had lived a few centuries earlier, she could have expanded her empire by conquering the rest of the Mediterranean. If she had lived a few centuries later, she could have maintained her kingdom by submitting to the rising power of the Sassanid Empire. But she lived at a time when Rome was hungry for conquest and expansion, and Egypt was smack dab in the middle of their path to domination. What are your thoughts on Cleopatra? Do you think she could have done anything differently to change her fate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this episode of Who Really Ruled the World. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.